sticking around. I found everything really interesting, and I hope you won't be disappointed by my presentation. So in my presentation, I'm trying to explore a new media work called Labor in a Single Shot. I'm wondering how many people in the room sort of know about it. Anyone does? Oh, you do? Great. So I will spend a bit of time trying to think about what type of object labor in a single shot is. Some of you might already know about it. It's a bit complicated to ascertain what exactly it is. It seems to be a number of things. So for example, I was thinking, should I talk about it as an archive? I won't be doing this, but I can sort of imagine people doing that. I'll spend a bit of time trying rather to unpack what calling it a project, as it's often called, means. My aim is to think primarily about the type of terrain that participants in this project, let's call them cameramen and women, had to navigate. I got in touch with one of the participants in Cairo, in the Cairo workshop. Her name is Nour, and I will try to sort of take this as the basis of my presentation, and I will talk to you a bit about what she told me. And I think, so I got in touch with her for various reasons, which I hope will become clearer by the end. But I do think that one of her contributions to the project, the soldier shot, as it's often called, shows ways that can help in articulating what emancipation could mean in today's quote-unquote neoliberal societies. So, what is labor in a single shot? According to the website and many reviews, labor in a single shot is a project which involves workshops in 15 cities around the world where participants are asked to explore and record in a single shot labor in their city. And also there's another second part, and that's a web catalog. And this is sort of a screen grab from what the web catalog looks like. One of the many pages of the web catalog look like. And that web catalog would include all the shots that were produced in all the workshops. Labor in a Single Shot is the last addition to Ruin Farouqi's edifice. He worked on it with his longtime curator friend and wife, Andrew Iman. The workshops took place starting in 2011 in metropolises around the world, including Cairo, Lisbon, Mexico City, among others. Saying that it's a project, however, does not seem to say much about what sort of object of analysis labor in a single shot is, especially if one takes into consideration that the project now also includes exhibitions, like this one in Boston. So in these exhibitions, only some of the videos that were produced are included. Some are excluded depending on location, apparently. Also, the web catalog of labor in a single shot, which only goes to show that calling it a project seems to be a catch-all term that doesn't really reveal a lot, includes very elaborate statistics on labor in each of the countries in which workshops were conducted. So here is, for example, what the Berlin page looks like. I personally do not think calling it a project gives a positive answer to the question, what is labor in a single shot? What it might do, though, is exclude certain possibilities for what it is not. So obviously, labor in a single shot is not a film. But also, it's not the platform for the accumulation of clips, the way, for example, Vimeo or YouTube are. Labor in a single shot is more than anything else a framework, maybe people can call it a signal framework, within which participants operate. It starts with a well-defined set of questions and an aim. The aim of labor in a single shot, the way it has been sort of articulated by Farouqi and Iman, is to open one's eyes. They write, labor in a single shot aims to respond to and grapple with the specific characteristics of each of the project's 15 workshop cities and regions. In each city, we see all types of labor going on every day: cobblers, cook, waiters, window cleaners, etc. But most of the work activities happen behind closed doors. Often labor is not only invisible, but also unimaginable. Therefore, it is vital to undertake research to open one's eyes and to set oneself into motion. Where can we see what kind of labor? What's hidden? What happens in the center of a city? What occurs at the periphery? What is characteristic and what is unusual with regards to each city? What kinds of labor processes set interesting cinematographic challenges? And I think that last question is really interesting. Neda Shazli, the participant from Cairo that I contacted, and sort of my informant, mentioned to me that with Farouqi and Iman, they discussed a lot what labor means in the 21st century, how it has changed over time, and what impact image representations had on people's understanding of what constituted labor today. That all took place even before they started shooting. So maybe the choice to describe labor in a single shot as a project brings to the fore an interest in the exploration of a set of questions as opposed to emphasizing a final product and calling it maybe an artwork or a database. Labor in a single shot is not a product, but a structure, a framework within which to explore and make creative decisions. With that said, though, one has to ask whose project labor in a single shot is. In other words, who is exploring what? Who sets those frameworks within which to playfully explore ideas about labor? If one is to think about it this way, that's to say, ask about the framework which gives labor in a single shot its form, allow it to sort of come in existence the way it does, then labor in a single shot has to be regarded as primarily Haroon Farouqi's and Iman's project. Indeed, it was them who started it in 2011, but also they're the ones who have set the territory for exploration and the acceptable tool to use in that exploration. And that's the digital camera. There are also a few explicit regulations. So every participant has to submit a single shot, so no cuts are allowed, and I think you sort of talked about cuts in one of the keynote addresses, so no cuts are allowed in here. And also it should be under 2 minutes long. But labor in a single shot seems to take form, and I'm interested in this idea of form and sort of hoping that we could discuss it later. It seems to take form from a number of layers. So in addition to that, the setting of territory and the regulations of the under 1 minute and stuff like that. So what are some of these layers? I think it's interesting and useful to think about these layers as social scripts that mediate behavior and that have to be faced by participants in this project and give it as a result a form that is navigatable. So this is a project that is its main life online. Participants are told, as Shazli informed me, that whatever they produce will be uploaded online on a platform that's similar to Vimeo or comparable sites. In fact, mostly all of the videos on that platform are on Vimeo, as well as the web catalog. So already participants are aware, even before they sort of work through that framework, that they're producing for a very specific audience and for a very specific screen and an online social context. I think this comes across in how many of them opted for close-ups when they started shooting. There are very few long shots in the manner we see, for instance, in establishing shots at the beginning of movies. So these are some of the stills from some of the videos on the website. So given the smallness of the intended screen, it's mostly the laptop screen, and even when they are in exhibitions, as you've seen in the Boston exhibition, they're usually on very small screens and you have your own individual headset. So these small screens are very intimate, and they require, I think, and within them, the close-up becomes even more impactful. Participants have made that decision, at least, most of them, and they've relied on the close-up in very large numbers. But that's not the only way that the project's life online could be seen to influence the artistic choices and decisions of the participants. On another level, the sociability of Web 2.0, its so-called sociability, could have influenced how participants think about their activity and hence their behavior and choices. So Shazli, for example, told me, and she's a professional singer who works sort of in the indie scene in Cairo, she told me that she has a lot of her work on SoundCloud and even YouTube, and that she's well aware what an existence of one's work online means. She's not unfamiliar with a situation where someone like me, for example, sees her work online and then contacts her via Facebook. So the embodied subjectivity, and I find this a bit interesting, and I hope we discuss it later. So the embodied subjectivity and hence the choices and behaviors brought about by labor in a single shot for the participants is one that might be called the subjectivity of molecular individualism. This is not a term that I'm coining, but it's a term that is used more recently in political theory. And what I mean with molecular individualism, though, is that each participant, as they go about exploring labor within the framework offered by Farouqi and Iman in Labor in a Single Shot, they negotiate an individual outlook and relationship to others. This comes across very interestingly in the grid format of the website. So every shot, as you can see, exists as an individual unit. It's identifiable as an individual unit, but it also exists in relation to other units. And I noticed today that this is also how the Google images will come up. So it might be an interesting analogy. Even if we can think about them, for example, each one of these single shots is an atom, and then it combines with different atoms to form new molecules. So piece 4 might be regarded as a molecule, and then the top 4 might be regarded as a different molecule, and that's sort of how I understand molecular individualism. So of course, what I'm doing here is taking from the situation of the shots an analogy for what the participant's subjectivity could have been like. We can discuss if that's possible or not. So Shazli was aware, at least as she talked to me, that she's an artist who values her own individual outlook in life, but that she's also necessarily in relationship to other people, whether they are the participants in the workshops in places like Cairo and Alexandria, or in other cities around the world. They in fact had to see some of what was produced, so they were among the very first workshops. The Cairo workshop was among the very early workshops that took place at the end of 2011, but by that point they also had some participants from Mexico City that produced some work, so they were aware of it and they saw it in Vimeo. But also, the other relationship, there's an imagined internet viewer, and I am, for example, one of these imagined viewers that could have potentially contacted her, and I in fact did. So Web 2.0, or the internet, was one of the layers, I believe, that has mediated people's decisions, artistic and creative decisions, as participants in that framework. But it's not the only layer of mediation, I think. All participants were shown the Lumiere brothers' 95 film. That's the very first film in the history of cinema, and it's called Workers Leaving the Lumiere Factory in Lyon. They were also shown a film by Safoury called Workers Leaving the Factory. It was made in 1995. It's very much in dialogue with the Lumiere brothers' 1895 film. I'd like to show you a few minutes from the ending of Safoury's 1995 film, because I believe he puts forward a provocation for anyone with a camera interested in shooting labor, and I believe that this provocation sort of resonated in how the participants understood their role.
Whenever possible, film has moved hastily away from factories. Factories have not attracted film, rather they have repelled it. If we line up 100 years of scenes of people leaving factories, we can imagine that the same shot had been taken over and over. Like a child who repeats its first word for 100 years to immortalize its pleasure in that first spoken word. Or like Far Eastern artists who repeatedly paint the same picture until it is perfect and the artist can enter the picture. When we could no longer believe in such perfection, film was invented.
So I believe in this film, Safoury points out a unique relationship between the camera as a tool for artistic practice and the labor force, but also between the camera as a physical object and the bodies of laborers. There's a dialogic activity taking on whenever a camera operator shoots laborers, because they themselves are laborers. As the voiceover points out, the institution of cinema, but specifically the camera as used within this institution, has had a love-hate relationship with shooting workers. Workers leaving factories is a scene that comes up again and again in film after film throughout cinema history. So these are some of the examples. It extends all the way, they're shot in exactly the same way all the way till the late 80s. Shooting workers was the first setting within which the camera operator came in contact with the film subjects, as the clip shows. And the pattern that the Lumiere brothers provided for that relationship between the filmmaker or camera operator and the worker seems to have solidified. Whenever workers are filmed, the same pattern is repeated. The camera is usually static. The magnitude of the working masses is what's to be emphasized, their vastness of number and solidarity with one another. They move together. But as the ending of the 1995 film, which we've just seen, tells us, there is a need to reimagine the relationship with the camera, and with it the camera operator has to labor. Standing on the outside and observing using the camera is no longer enough to open one's eyes, or to make visible what, as Eamon and Faroki put it, is invisible about labor in the 21st century. So if we could say, for example, that the solidarity of the workers in the 20th century was what was made visible by sort of the magnifying eye of the camera. This is not really what is magnified by the camera when it looks at labor in the 21st century. I think so looking at what was produced in these workshops, what seems to be, according to the consensus, what's revealed by the magnifying lens of the camera about labor in the 21st century is its repetitiveness. I find this a bit problematic, but looking at the over 200 clips that were produced as a result of these 15 workshops, repetitiveness seems to be what is revealed about what's invisible about labor in the 21st century. I do not know whether that's right or not, because I'm not sure that there's any longer a dominant form of labor that could be researched and as a result sort of the hegemonic logic of society revealed. But that's what sort of the consensus is. This is why I also think that there is a problem when we focus on how sort of forms exist in society as opposed to how people navigate them, because this is what happened in the project. So they seem to have been encouraged to think about how sort of labor has a distinct form, and then they were asked to reveal the invisible part of that form, to sort of bring us to consciousness in a way. Rather than investigating sort of the essential features of the form, I'm more interested in how individuals seem to navigate that form as if it were a social structure, what might be called, again, sort of a framework within which to make decisions, choices, and to act. And I think that's potentially more fruitful. When I do that, one of the things that will be sort of revealed is that the opposition between the camera operator and the workers has completely collapsed, and even the camera operator now is sort of very reflexively aware that they are workers themselves. So let me go back to Chesley and how she has navigated the layers of mediation that I have spoken about, sort of Web 2.0 and watching these two films that give a prototype for how the camera operator relates to workers. What caught my attention about Chesley's shot, that I will show you, and it's sort of less than 1 minute long, is that it really stands out from everything that was produced. So there has been that consensus that sort of the human body enters a repetitiveness in 21st century, particularly physical labor, but one can argue also there's something about intellectual labor that's repetitive in the 21st century. She sort of completely even refused to include a human being in her clip. And then, I will show you the clip and talk very briefly about what I think is useful about it. Very short clip. So in this clip, she refused to shoot a human being, which is something that pretty much everyone else does. In that sense, she disagrees with the consensus, and some people like Chantal Mouffe or Jack Ronser seem simply in the act of disagreement something that's highly important in a consensus-driven neoliberal society. But what I think is brilliant about this shot, and I think about her contribution to the project, is that it depends on the web of relations in order to fulfill its aim as an exploration of labor. Sort of on its own, in any other web of relations, it could have been about anything else. But because of these relations, that it has to the other clips, it becomes an exploration of labor, and in fact a very reflexive exploration of it, because she brings out that consensus that labor is repetitive, which in some ways is not really questioned anywhere else. I think that's the paradox that the soldier shot highlights. In order to act, choose her course of action, she had to interpret the limitations that came with the labor in a single shot as a framework within which to make decisions, and the influences that other people sort of had on what types of decisions are to be made. But at the same time, what she created was an object that has a degree of fluidity. It sort of depends on the imposed framework for its meaning, but also is not completely subsumed within that framework. I hope that sort of part makes sense, but at the end, I think that sort of fluidity, let's say, of the created object can point towards a spirit of liberation within the creator, an agency that I think is very important. Thank you.
Process, with an increasingly critical awareness of their role as subjects of the transformation. If they are drawn into the process as ambiguous beings, partly themselves and partly the oppressor's house within them, and if they come into power still embodying that ambiguity imposed on them by the situation of oppression, it is my contention that they will merely imagine they have reached power. This research aims to explore participatory and community cinema from theory and practice perspectives in a case study of open cinema. Open cinema works in the community, but also through an innovative online platform which offers opportunities to view and learn about cinema. The hypothesis is that engaging as a participant in online and offline activity is likely to improve engagement in society and self-worth with a disadvantage. How this occurs and to what level will be investigated and triangulated using participant observation, the researcher's fieldwork diary, the participants' media diaries, and interviews with both the producers and the users in a longitudinal and comparative study in Sheffield and London. The project is likely to interest local government, charities, social workers, but also filmmakers, film distributors, and media quality makers. Findings will offer insight into how online offline social business is contributing to innovations in digital film production and distribution. The second, but no less important, aspect of the study will be to qualify and quantify how participatory film contributes to the self-improvement of participants, and to what extent this is located within the offline and online creative work. At a meta level, the project will explore through the case study how participatory involvement in creative work and social enterprise can catalyse social value beyond the text. Open Cinema's frames a form of post-digital technology cinema, which is beginning to operate beyond the becoming digital base, locating itself within participatory culture. Like all media, cinema emerges from a complex set of economic relationships. It is also one of the most powerful cultures arenas for social interaction and human development. Interest in the triple bottom line theory has been growing in both the profit and non-profit sectors. Whilst many organisations have adopted the TBR framework, this is yet to be explored in film exhibition and distribution. The project will be a collaborative study of the Open Cinema organisation, a national network of film clubs programmed by and for marginalised communities in the UK. Since 2009, Open Cinema have launched 34 film clubs in some of the most challenging communities in the UK and Ireland. They have welcomed almost 14,000 individual admissions, over 18,000 volunteer hours, and received almost 200 experts from the film industry, from universities and companies in a dynamic range of fields. Previously, all this has been manually delivered. This has created problems when creating a participatory cinema, and Open Cinema are now moving to a digital platform. This remedies problems of ticketing, marketing, registration and programming. The new digital interface holding 70,000 films, organisations simply register their venue, select a film, and the communities buy the tickets and monetize the film programme. Participatory cinema and the role of social enterprise in digital technology still remains to be thoroughly analysed, both as a framework for measuring the utility of cinema and as a way of radical thinking about participatory cinema in the digital film age. Describing the facets of participatory culture, Henry Jenkins noted the relatively low barriers to artistic expression and the civic engagement and the strong support for creating and sharing creations with others. David Gornstedt suggests that making is connected because acts of creativity usually involve a social dimension and connect us with other people, our social and physical environments. These dynamics, identified in Open Cinema, generate social development opportunities and cultural inclusion, but concurrently permits new digital technologies and viable creative business partnerships, blended returns on investment to emerge. However, achieving blended value is not without its challenges. Traditionally, many non-profit organisations have underperformed on the economic terrain. This research will also offer a case study of the challenges faced by a blended value organisation operating within the digital film sector. This project will investigate the capacity of digital technologies to advance the capabilities and multifaceted participation of peripheral individuals and communities. The research aims to develop a better understanding of the role of cinema in creating societal value, digital literacy, self-worth, cultural value, creative collaboration, and cognitive surplus. Peripheral social communities will be the key agents considered in this intersection where social practice, digital technology, and commerciality will be explored at different scales of interaction, the micro, meso, and macro levels. Across these levels, the research will explore how different communities inform and respond to the work of practitioners working within this field. One way to define participatory communities, such as they're aggregated by Open Cinema, is as a community of practice. In COP, the focus of study is on how community interacts and learns together through interest and activity in a shared domain to develop the participant's identity and social value as a member of that community. This is a suitable framework for the ethnographic analysis of a community filmmaking organisation culture, providing information regarding social, creative business and innovation contexts. Executors of both a production and user study and in-depth analysis will be provided of Open Cinema's current methods for providing filmmaking education through viewing, critique, making and reflection and discussion for the purpose of furthering new concepts, positions and representations of contemporary moral, political and social issues that focus on recent problems that have come to affect both its creative and business imperatives. Such ethnographic observations permit interactions both with senior members of Open Cinema and organisation partners, exploring how new media forms are being used by particular disconnected communities in particular moments. Why is this preferred creative tool used to address and articulate cultural reconnection? Qualitative analysis will be informed by Guy's 7 building tasks of language. Significance. How is this digital cinema platform relevant to the lives of participants? Practices. What is being enacted by the participant discourse within the affinity space? Identities. How does the film programme figure in their own position in the discourse and the positions of others? Relationships. What ties are being formed between participants through the programme? Politics. What are the power relations within the project? Connections. How does the programme, distribution and viewing of films relate to the broader blended returns ideals of the product? And finally, signs, systems and knowledge. Signs, systems and knowledge. What broader social value indexes are produced? By combining a structural analysis of open cinema vis-a-vis the qualitative analysis of the discourse occurring within the community space using the product, the researcher aims to understand how the spaces were maximised and the broader social values created and extracted by the users. In this way, the research is both ontological and epistemological. Methodology used in this project combines qualitative and quantitative approaches with those more commonly used in organisational space, described as participant action research. As mentioned, the research takes its intellectual lead from Paulo Freire's Pedagogy of the Oppressed. As he states, the leaders who deny praxis to the oppressed thereby invalidate their own praxis. All strands of open cinema and the research with varying scales of co-design and co-production position communities as central to the process. Participatory culture is particularly important here because they increasingly recognise as major agents for social change. Our central thesis is that disconnected communities can be considered significant repositories of knowledge and resources for creativity that can bring important rewards for individuals, communities and societies. The method will provide a multi-dimensional insight into user behaviour in relation to digital service. Critical foci that will emerge are the user, the service, the organisation, and this will investigate the participants' wants, needs, tasks, contexts, motivations and expectations, the functions of a particular digital service and its associated enablers and barriers and aspects of technology and design. Finally, the organisation focus will concentrate on contextual aspects of open cinema, covering both internal and external factors such as resources, management procedures, internal and external strategies, which all combine to produce a holistic case study. Given that user-producer studies are context-driven and multidimensional, they will generally require multidimensional methods with which to study their associated research questions. These drawings, when coded and cross-referenced, will produce data regarding participants' backgrounds, socialisation, relationships, opinions, sense of self and identity, and orientation to open cinema. Participants will consist of a total of 120 individuals equally situated in London and Sheffield. In London, this will be low-income groups, the retired, the unemployed, and single parents. Excluded groups in Sheffield are defined as homeless, those with mental health incapacities, and dependency issues. Group A in Sheffield will programme, distribute, and exhibit a film season using the new digital interface. Group B, the non-digital method. This ethnographic study will take place within community centres in both regions, where reflection, discussion, and online film exhibition will take place. James Heath describes such informal learning arenas as affinity spaces. Affinity spaces are also highly generative locations from which new aesthetic experiments and innovations can emerge. Such grassroots creativity can be an important engine of cultural transformation, in which all participants have access to the means of creative expression and the networks and human development opportunities produced. Affinity spaces also offer a powerful opportunity for learning, as they are sustained by common endeavours that unify differences, ethnicity, age, and gender, and because people can participate in numerous ways according to their skills and interests. Such a space, containing a number of heterogeneous participants, offer potential valuable multimodal data. Participant observation data will also be collected through each programming unit, gathered in chronological form to achieve a comparative analysis of the benefit of such digital programming, and capture and measure how participants feel about themselves, their identities, social landscapes, and the competencies developed by the digital intervention. The research will utilise participant observation analysis to visualise and make sense of the media making, social relationships, changes in identity, competency, the overall cultural and societal change within the participant groups, and production culture within the open cinema organisation. Data capture methods include audio, vox-pops, and face-to-face interviews, media frameworks, digital diaries, questionnaires, focus groups, and developmental workshops with participants, which will all demonstrate and development in action and thinking. Further, the relationship between users and producers will provide interesting data in relation to person perception, control systems, and the role of participants as prosumers in the evolution of the online platform and its offline campaign activities. The relationship between economy and culture has traditionally been presented as one of opposites. Yet, the creative industries, including film, digital technology, media, and other forms of cultural production, are now increasingly recognised as important agents in both economic and social development in the UK. The use of participatory methods, making, viewing, critique, and discussion, and the analysis of those activities, when coupled with analysis of the producers of the platform of the Open Cinema enterprise, will provide a rich source of comparative data. The research has been designed to provide a 360-degree view of the creative and cultural programme which Open Cinema provides for disadvantaged people. It will provide valuable findings on the benefits of engaging with participatory programmes online and offline, an analysis of the online and offline activities themselves and how they interrelate, and analysis from the industrial perspective of Open Cinema organisation. Open Cinema represents a unique, not-for-profit business model that attempts to unify the cultural commercial divide and has identified the urgent need for re-articulating cinema as a theatrical platform. It's an independent, open, and self-effective organisation looking at the cultural dimensions taking place outside formal, institutionally recognised spaces and highlights the value of how those on the margins can use participatory film programming to challenge marginalisation. This research proposes identity, analyse, and promote and share evidence on the contribution that these communities can make to film culture and translate these into findings to inform cultural policy.